Welcome to my channel. Have you ever looked at the night sky and noticed that the moon changes shape? One night, it's a big bright circle, and another night, it's just a tiny sliver. But how does that happen? Is someone taking a bite out of the moon? There's an old bedtime story about a cow nibbling away at the moon, little by little. But don't worry, the moon always grows back. Of course, the real reason is all about how the moon moves around Earth. Let's find out how it works. In this video, we will be answering these 3 questions. What causes the phases of the moon? What are the names of the moon's phases? And how do moon phases appear from different latitudes? What causes the phases of the moon? Before we dive into the moon's phases, it's important to understand how the moon moves around Earth. First, have you ever noticed that we always see the same side of the moon? No matter where you are on Earth, the moon shows us only one face. That's because the moon spins on its axis, just like Earth does. It has day and night, with one half always lit by the sun and the other half in darkness. But here's the cool part. The moon takes the same amount of time to spin once as it does to orbit Earth once. This means it turns just enough so that we can only ever see one side. This is called tidal locking. I'll make a separate video about that later. So, the side we always see is called the near side, and the side we never get to see is called the far side. As the moon orbits around Earth, we see different amounts of its lit up side, creating the phases of the moon. The moon takes about 27.3 days to complete one full orbit around Earth. This is called the sidereal month. However, because Earth is also moving around the sun, it actually takes 29.5 days for the moon to return to the same phase, from one new moon to the next. This is called the synodic month. When sunlight shines on the moon, we see the bright side, just like we see daytime on Earth where the sun lights up one half of our planet. But depending on where the moon is in its orbit, we see different amounts of the lit up part. Sometimes we see just a little sliver, and other times we see a full glowing moon. The phases of the moon. Now let's see the names of the moon's phases and what they really mean. Number 1, new moon. This is when the moon is right between Earth and the sun. The far side is lit up, but the near side, the side facing us, is completely dark, so we can't see it at all. It's like the moon is hiding. That's why we call it the new moon. It marks the start of a brand new cycle. Number 2, waxing crescent. The word waxing comes from the Old English word weeksen, which means to grow or increase. Crescent means we see just a tiny sliver of the moon. So, during this phase, the moon starts to grow from the new moon, but it's still just a small slice. Interestingly, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the lit part of the moon appears on the right. But if you're in the southern hemisphere, it appears on the left. The amount of the moon we see is the same, but the direction of the lit side is flipped. I'll explain why in this later. Number 3, first quarter. At this stage, half of the near side of the moon is lit up, making it look like a semicircle. It's called first quarter because it happens about 1/4 of the way through the moon's orbit. Number 4, waxing gibbous. Gibbous means the moon is more than half full. It's almost completely lit, just a little more to go until it's full. Number 5, full moon. This is when the entire near side of the moon is lit up, making it the biggest and brightest moon of the whole cycle. At this point, the far side is completely dark. Number 6, waning gibbous. After the full moon, the moon starts shrinking. Waning means getting smaller. This phase looks like the waxing gibbous, but the lit up part is now fading. Number 7, third quarter. Another half moon. By this time, the opposite half is lit compared to the first quarter. It happens 3/4 of the way through the moon cycle. Number 8, waning crescent. The moon is now just a tiny sliver again, but this time the light is disappearing. This is the last phase before the cycle starts over with a new moon. Why do moon phases look different from different places on Earth? If you're standing at the North Pole, the moon appears one way. But if you're at the South Pole, the moon is flipped upside down. That's because your top and bottom are different depending on where you are on Earth. So, the moon's lit up side appears to change direction depending on your location. So, that's the story of the moon phases, from new moon to full moon and back again. Now you know why the moon changes shape and what each phase is called. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video. Bye!